Hello everyone, this is King the Creator from Creative Kingdoms, and welcome to the very first episode of Creative Kings, the animated show that turns your passions into your profits. Creators, do you like making money? Do you want to have your own platform or make a career out of what you actually enjoy doing? It's time to start achieving your goals. Creative Kings is a podcast dedicated to getting creatives the knowledge and resources they need to start establishing and growing their platforms. Each week, a fundamental topic is discussed, and occasionally there will be interviews with aspiring or established creatives sharing their wisdom and experiences. The goal of the show is to teach creators what they don't in schools and help them achieve their dreams. Now, who is the show intended for? If you are a visual artist, that is, an illustrator, a comic artist, an animator, graphic designer. If you are a writer, which includes novelists, poets, and screenwriters, a musician, a game developer, even content creators, film and video, it doesn't matter. If you are a creative, wanting to build their platform, build an audience, readership, viewership, and make a little profit on the side, or turn it into your main career, then this show is for you. Now, about me. I'm what you would call a 90s kid, and back then, the internet had a top speed of around 56 kilobytes a second, 1.5 if you had the digital subscriber line, you were really balling out if you had that, and I was around during the golden age of the TV block programming. That is Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, that is Cartoon Network, PBS, and few of the shows, just to name a few, Wild Thornberrys, Dexter's Laboratory, Rugrats, those are big ones, SpongeBob, which is heavily memed today. Combine this with being around for the console era, that is the PlayStation 1, the Sega Dreamcast, the Game Boy Color, shout out to those who had the red or blue version of Pokemon. You don't know trauma until you had a sibling overwrite your save data. Needless to say, surrounded by all these influences, there was one TV block programming that I can say with confidence influenced the whole next generation of artists that you see today, and that would be Toonami. Held on afternoons and Saturdays on Cartoon Network. Now, back then, having access to anime was very rare. Again, the internet only got a top speed of about 56 kilobytes, so hopping on YouTube and watching your favorite anime just was not in the cards, as those did not exist yet. Growing up with Toonami in the late 90s and early 2000s, you know there were about 6 primary animes to watch. And you know they were Yu Yu Hakusho, Inuyasha, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Full Metal Alchemist, just to name a few. And when surrounded by all these, oh, can't forget Cowboy Bebop, of course. And surrounded by all these creative influences, in the days of cable, where if you missed your TV programming, that was a wrap. You did not see that TV programming unless you had the hookup at a video rental store, shout out to Blockbuster or Family Video. Needless to say, my path into art was inevitable. And it wasn't until high school, where I was working as a student helper in the counseling office. An ambassador from the Minneapolis College of Art and Design came, and I guess there was some kind of scheduling conflict. They were supposed to speak to a bunch of students, some wires got crossed, and I happened to just be there because I was the student helper and no one else showed up. So the MCAT ambassador talked to me about their program at the school, comic art and illustration, and I was immediately in love with it. Because back then I thought the only way you could have a profitable career as a storytelling artist is, with your own story, mind you, is either getting your own show or making a comic as big as The Walking Dead. Robert Kirkman was pretty big at the time with Walking Dead taking off on AMC. They were about season 3 at that point. So I ended up going to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, pursuing a degree in comic art and illustration. Now, I was pretty cringe as a teenager because I believed it was my destiny to make the next great American comic and be rich and famous, good God. Needless to say, I learned a lot at college, and I learned a lot about business systems at the college, and that's how I got into webcomics. To me, webcomics utilize technology, which is a medium unique to the people of our time, and if you think about it, no one else in human history has had access to what we have access to now, especially with us millennials having seen the transition from the 56 kilobytes a second, I cannot believe we lived in that era, all the way to what we have now, which is, well, hopefully you have better than Iowa internet. So I'm not even going to give numbers on that one. But regardless, by senior year, I had learned the fundamentals of IT, got into webcomics, and that's how I started my comic career, making Zach Cooner, The Line Starts Here, Volume 1, which you can find at zackcooner.kzmaster.club. So It wasn't until post-art school that I realized that no one is really looking for Bachelors of Fine Arts comic artists out in the real world. The only jobs I could get were the same jobs that I could have gotten without going to art college in the first place. And that, the retail, the customer service, the warehouse work, doing sales, direct sales, data entry, all that good stuff. So that's when my grandfather told me about AmeriCorps, and I began my AmeriCorps service. Now, AmeriCorps is a government-funded nonprofit where you give back to your community over a stipend-paid 1,700-hour program that lasts for about 10-11 months. Now, at the end of the service, you get an education grant, which pays for your schooling, and I use my education grants to go back to school to get a master's in software engineering because I really wanted to pursue what technology could do for storytelling. After that, I found work with Mediacom as a Mediacom cable company. I use cable company loosely because not very many people have cable anymore. And I worked as a software and tools developer for about 6 months before realizing the difference between nonprofit work that directly and positively impacts people versus working corporate just for money. And while I was working at Mediacom, I really realized I was letting life pass me by not using my skill sets to help others achieve their goals. So I left Mediacom to start my own company, KZ Master Entertainment, and my goal is to help creatives who want to do what they enjoy for a living and be profitable with successful platforms and get them to where they're trying to go. Because as I learned with the study of business systems, there is a lot that is not taught in schools. They don't teach you about financial literacy. They don't teach you about utilizing credit. They don't teach you how to utilize credit to obtain financing. They don't teach you about business loans. They don't teach you about marketing, sales, and social media. At least they didn't when I went to art school. Outside the, get a Twitter platform and post your artwork and do fan art. That was the extent of us learning marketing. And they definitely didn't teach it in grad school either. So it wasn't until my mentor, Bo James, owner of Hip Hope Inc., introduced me to business systems and business loans that I really sunk my teeth into it because this is what I was missing the entire time. And if I can teach others what I know now about business systems and help them avoid their struggle or get them out of the struggle so that they too can be successful in their platforms and profitable, then I'm all for it. With all that being said, it's time to get to our first lesson. First things first, if you are a new creative or an aspiring creative, maybe you're curious about it and you don't quite know what you want to do yet, then this episode is all about you because this is Creative Kings 101. First things first, we have to find what you're actually passionate about. Now, there's a difference between what you're passionate about and what you're good at. Some people are good at things that they don't actually want to be good in and they actually end up hating it. Now, what excites you? What can you wake up and be excited to do? Even if it's something as simple as get up and play video games, which is a profitable career, mind you. Again, back in the 90s, they said video games couldn't make you money. Well, now you got multi-millionaires streaming on Twitch every day. So you tell me, do video games make you money when the gaming industry is $1 billion industry? But back to the root of the question, what actually excites you? And coincide to what excites you, what do you love to do? Now, the difference between what excites you and what you love to do is that what excites you is what you wake up for in the morning. Such as, for me, I love the story creation process, and I use story as a general blanket term for comics, animations, visual novels, and novels. And what I love to do is actually write. I couldn't care less about doing the actual artwork for the modeler, crafting the whole comic, paneling it out, doing the background. Some people really love that creation part of the process. To me, it's just work and a means to an end to make the story. But if I could just write and have the story come together on its own, isn't that the dream? Then that's what I really love doing. So when you understand the difference between what excites you and what you actually love to do, you can answer the next question, which is, what is your strength? What do you do better? Or what would other people say you do better? Maybe they don't know, since you maybe haven't shown them yet. But what do you do better than most people? And what do you do faster than most people? It does you no good to do really good work if your production rate is super low, and vice versa. It does you no good to have a super high production rate if the work quality is really low. So, what are your strengths? What are my strengths? Like I said, I love creating projects. And my biggest strength right now is because I did the Zach Kuhner graphic novel, which ended up being 190 pages. It was only supposed to be 75, mind you. I can now work in Clip Studio much faster than the average person and create comic pages much faster than the average person. When you're able to answer what your strengths are, you're better able to answer what are your weaknesses. What do you struggle with and what do you dislike doing? Now, I can tell you for most creators, our biggest weakness is our ability to market ourselves. I like to use the McDonald's analogy. And I got this from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, written by Robert Kiyosaki, award-winning book. Go read it if you have not. Can you make a better hamburger than McDonald's? Or can anyone in your family make a better hamburger than McDonald's? And if so, why does McDonald's make $1 billion off their average burger while you do not when you make a better burger than them? It's not because McDonald's has the best burger. It's because they have the best marketing system behind their burger that they're the best in the entire world at selling an average burger. And I'm being generous when I say average. So a lot of artists, creators, they treat their skill set like making the best hamburger and selling that as their product, when in reality, what they need to do is be able to market themselves. So when you understand what your weaknesses are, you're better able to understand how to leverage your strengths to build your platform. There is no point in trying to develop a skill set that someone else can do twice as good, twice as fast, with a little bit of compensation. However, if you leverage your strength to get more productivity, to get higher quality, to basically get a higher quality platform, then I would say do that. But before you can do that, you have to answer one last question. What problem do you see in the community that you want to target, that you want to solve? There are 3 different types of pain points. There are the bothersome pain point, which means the pain is a little bit bothering, but it's not so much that they have to act on it right now. There's the irritating pain point. It's the pain point that is constantly plaguing your target audience. Maybe they have done something about it, maybe they haven't done something about it. The bottom line is, if there's a solution to this irritating problem, they're gonna want it. And finally, it's the painful pain point. It's the one where they want immediate relief, that they will do whatever it takes and pay whatever it takes to get away from that pain point. So you have to ask yourself, what is the problem that your target audience is facing that you want to solve? Before we move on, let's quickly recap the questions you have to ask and answer, preferably written down in written form, is what excites you? What do you love to do? What are your strengths? What do you do better than most people? What do you do faster than most people? What are your weaknesses? What do you struggle with? What do you dislike doing? And what problem do you see that you want to solve in your target community? Once you figure that out, we can move on to the next section, which is learning how to sell yourself. Now, when I say sell yourself, I don't mean being a pushy car salesman and making people run for the hills, or having to get in front of every single person to market yourself. Because while that might be fine and dandy, and of course we'll do a whole episode dedicated to sales later, the reality of the situation is the top salespeople don't act like salespeople at all, at least not in the typical sense that you would think of. So understand that at its core, in order to develop your platform or market yourself or start selling your product, you need to understand what is your value proposition. Now, what is a value proposition? A value proposition is the tangible result somebody will get from buying your product or acting upon your service or call to action. Now, for creators, most creators anyway, and I mean this from a writing or visual art standpoint, this value is emotional attachment. That goes for musicians as well. So, when you understand what your value proposition is, you need to understand what is your unique selling point. What makes your product one of a kind? Do you want to know why most streamers, and I hate this statistic, is like 1% of streamers make the majority of the money, but you know what I hate about today's streaming culture is that the new streamers, or the people who wanting to get into streaming, they sort of adopt the same strategies that have already been done, that have been done dozens upon dozens of times, and they wonder why their audience is not growing. There's a whole list of reasons why their audience may not be growing, but the bottom line is there is no unique selling point above to these new streamers. If you have the exact same haircut, the exact same setup, the exact same lighting in the back, and you're playing the exact same games, how do you expect to stand out amongst the crowd, no matter how good the quality of your product is? And the same holds true for artists, for musicians, for game developers, etc. If you are doing the exact same thing, looking the exact same way as everyone else, you have no unique selling point. So again, you have to figure out what your value proposition is, and that is the tangible result somebody will get from buying your product or using your service. And you have to find what your unique selling point is. What makes you one of a kind? And don't say just because it's me and I'm special. That doesn't work. People have to remember you. And when they remember you, how are they going to remember you? When you understand your value proposition and your unique selling point, you can answer these questions. And I would definitely write these down. Question number 1. What is your value proposition? Number 2. Where do you stand in the market with your value proposition? Are you a complete newcomer starting out with no platform and 0 followers? Are you relatively established and you're just trying to grow your platform? Or maybe you have a large platform already and you're just looking to hone your fundamentals and get back to basics to grow your platform. Regardless, understand where you stand in the market. Number 3, do you care more about quality or quantity of sales? Now, let's dive into that a little bit. With a quality sale, let's say you have a high ticket item. Let's say you're pricing something, and for creatives, let's say you're pricing something for about 100, maybe even 500 monthly. Do you care about attracting high quality clients? Or do you care about having a low ticket, which is something for $9.99, and selling that maybe 1,000 times, 2,000 times, 5,000 times? So understand, do you care more about high quality clients, or do you care about the quantity of the clients that you're getting? Number 4, what do you want to convey to customers about your value? If you had to deliver a message to your core customers, what would it say? What would your product say about you? What would you say about your product? And what can it offer your customers? Number 5, what makes you different from everyone else? Why should people go to you? These questions come from Russell Nolte, owner of Wannabe Press, a successful comic book publishing company out in California. Now, when you're able to answer each of these questions, then you can go back and answer the core questions that will lay as the foundation for your platform. What creative field do you want to pursue? Now, obviously by now you probably have that figured out, but when you figure that out, what is the ideal company you want to work for in this field, if you had to work for a company in this field? Now, maybe you're completely unique and there is no other company doing this, which kudos to you. But if you had to work for a company in a related field, similar or related, who would that company be? Who's top dog right now? Then, who is your favorite creative or creator in this field? Who's the person who's absolutely killing it right now that you want to emulate? For example, if I were into dancing, and I am, and I wanted to pursue dance as a career, well, I would model myself after the twins. Those two are absolutely killing it. Finally, you can go back to the big questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years with your platform that you're either establishing or have established? Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 1 year? Where do you see yourself in 6 months? Where do you see yourself in 3 months? Where do you see yourself in 1 month? And where do you see yourself in next week? Now, the reason the questions start from the furthest range all the way down to the shortest range, is the fact that a lot of people, when it comes to estimating themselves, they underestimate what they can actually do in a short amount of time and overestimate what they can do in a long period of time. When in reality, building towards your goal is a constant sort of marathon process. It's not a sprint in any way, shape, or form. If you can find any marketer who treated their campaign as a full-on sprint, hey, kudos to you. But the mantra when it comes to marketing is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. The saying goes that most overnight successes took over several years to get there. Of course, you only saw the successful point. You didn't see all the work that went in behind it. And the same can be said with building your platform, though that's not to infer it will take years to develop your platform. I'm saying plan your goals out and understand you are capable of a lot more than you think in a short amount of time. So to reiterate, what creative field do you want to pursue? What is the ideal company to work for in this field? Who is your favorite creator in this field? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 3 years, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, and next week? So, you've gotten to the end of the first episode, and thank you for sticking with me through all of this. If you have made it and you have answered all these questions, you now have the foundation of your platform of which we are going to build off of in future episodes of Kreative Kings. Congratulations for taking these first steps, and I hope I can guide you on your journey and help you develop your platform and be successful and help you reach your goals. Now, future shows will go over the basic fundamentals of each topic related to social media, marketing, sales, creation, the creation process itself, etc. You can find King the Creator at my social media hubs over at allmylinks.com/KZMaster2020. That is allmylinks.com/KZMaster2020. Please give a like and subscribe if you're watching the animated version on YouTube, and rate the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so we can progress in the algorithm and help as many creatives as possible. Thank you for joining the show. I look forward to helping in any way, shape, or form that I can for future episodes. Until next time, get out and go create.